I wonder if you could do something for us here, and this we'll definitely take a clip of this. You're a CDS trader. Virtually nobody but other CDS traders really understands what a credit default swap is. Could you give us 2 minutes and kind of break that down for us?
Absolutely.
What is one of those things, and how do they fit into the ecosystem?
So we said, I said earlier that companies, when they need cash, they'll kind of say, hey, I'm going to go and issue a bond, right? Where investors will give the company money, and the company vows to, promises to give them a coupon payment, say, 3%, every year for the next 10 years, and then they pay back the investors. Mm-hmm. Let's say that you are an investor, a very wealthy investor, and you own $100 million of bonds from this company X. And all of a sudden you start to think, crap, if they go out of business or they go bankrupt, I just lost $100 million. So the only other thing you could buy to protect you for the downside is called a credit default swap. So a credit default swap is essentially insurance on a bond. So if you buy $100 million protection on that very same bond, let's say that the company goes bankrupt and that bond, which was, worth par. So, say $1 for easy terms, but $1,000, right? Each bond. And investors are then, through the bankruptcy process, only get $300 on their $1,000 investment. The CDS will pay out the additional $700. So you're made whole.
Only if the bond issuer.
So the bond
through the that's the default process. Part of a CDS, right? Is when the bond issuer defaults, that's when it pays out.
Correct.
So who's issuing the insurance? How does that work? Who's paying in that case?
So if you're buying protection, you are paying a coupon to the protection seller for having that protection.
Or the institutions that create that insurance policy, they usually, AIG had was big time before the financial crisis.
Mostly the broker dealers that we talked about, investment.
But it's not always an insurer that's.
No. Right. It's a contract that you just make, that you write.
And I guess that thing becomes a security because it's tradable.
Contract is a tradable.
That was my next question, right? So that contract, irrespective of whether the issuer ultimately goes, defaults, that contract is itself an asset that can then be traded on, some derivatives exchange.
So let's say that, like I said, throughout the day, I'm streaming prices at which I will buy and sell every security. I'm live prices, and I'm always changing my prices depending on what stocks are doing. But let's say that someone hits me on 100 million investment grade CDX. I immediately get really aggressive on my offer, and then someone else will lift me on 150 million CDX. So my net exposure is 50 million long. I'll start bidding again. Someone will hit me on 50, and boom, I'm back to neutral. Essentially, all three of those trades are then torn up at the end of the week, and I have, the contracts are essentially torn up. I've made the profit in between.